doing?
You know that feeling when you're watching a movie and the car becomes more memorable than half the characters? That's exactly what happened with the infamous 1972 Cadillac Sedan DeVille in License to Drive. This wasn't just any prop car. This was automotive destruction elevated to an art form. Today we're counting down 20 weird facts about Les's grandfather's prize Cadillac that you definitely didn't know. From stunt car secrets to hidden movie magic, we're about to reveal what really happened to that poor DeVille. And trust me, some of these facts will completely change how you watch this movie. So buckle up, because we're taking this caddy for one more ride. Number 20. It wasn't a real 1972 model. Here's something that'll blow your mind right off the bat. That pristine Cadillac DeVille that Grandpa cherished so much. It was never actually a 1972 model. The production team couldn't find enough matching 72 DeVilles in decent condition for all the stunts they had planned. So what did they do? They got creative. Really creative. They rounded up several early 70s Cadillacs, mostly 71 and 73 models, and dressed them up to look like one consistent 72 DeVille. The art department spent weeks matching paint, swapping trim pieces, and even fabricating custom badges to create the illusion of one perfect car. Different scenes actually feature different year models pretending to be the same vehicle. The close-up hero car was a 73. Most of the stunt cars were 71s. And that final crashed wreck? That was actually a 74 they found in a junkyard and retrofitted. The average viewer never noticed because the production team meticulously matched details like wheel covers, antenna placement, and even the specific shade of that classic Cadillac blue. It's movie magic at its finest, turning a fleet of mismatched land yachts into one unforgettable character. Number 19, the hero car was actually well kept. You'd think they'd use a beater for a movie where the entire plot revolves around destroying a car, right? Wrong. The main Cadillac used for all those beauty shots and close-ups was actually a collector-grade vehicle before filming began. The production found it through a classic car dealer in Pasadena who specialized in pristine 70s luxury cars. This thing had 42,000 original miles. Original paint, original interior, the works. The owner was a retired aerospace engineer who'd babied it since new, keeping it garaged and driving it only on Sundays. When the production team first saw it, they couldn't believe their luck. Here was exactly what they needed for Grandpa's pride and joy. Of course, the seller had no idea what they planned to do with it. They told him it was for light filming work and paid him $8,000 cash, which was good money for a Cadillac back in 1988. By the end of production, that pristine piece of automotive history looked very different. But for those opening scenes where Grandpa lovingly polishes his baby, you're looking at genuine collector-grade Detroit iron. Number 18, multiple stunt cars were destroyed. While that hero car got the glamour shots, the real dirty work fell to a fleet of stunt doubles. The production destroyed at least 4 complete Cadillacs during filming. And we're not talking about minor fender benders here. These cars were absolutely demolished. The stunt coordinator sourced them from junkyards and used car lots around Los Angeles, specifically looking for runners that looked decent from 20 feet away, but were mechanically shot. One came from a tow yard in Van Nuys with a blown transmission. Another was a repo from Riverside with serious frame damage hidden under fresh Bondo. They paid between $300 and $800 for each one, depending on how straight the body looked. Each stunt car was assigned specific destruction scenes. Car number 2 handled all the curb jumping and suspension abuse. Car number 3 took the sideswipe damages and parking mishaps. Car number 4 was reserved for that spectacular final crash sequence. By the time filming wrapped, the combined scrap value of all 4 cars was less than $200. The production actually had to pay to have them hauled away because no junkyard wanted them in the condition they were in. Number 17, its interior wasn't always the same. Pay close attention to the interior shots and you'll notice something strange. The upholstery changes, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly. That's because they were using at least 3 different interiors throughout the movie. The hero car had pristine blue leather with that classic Cadillac button-tufted pattern. Beautiful stuff. But the stunt cars? Not so much. One had black vinyl that had been spray-dyed blue to sort of match. Another had the right color but the wrong year's seat pattern. The dashboard changed too. In some shots, you see wood grain trim. In others, it's that fake carbon fiber pattern Cadillac used in '73. The steering wheel goes from blue to blue again, depending on which car they were shooting in. The production tried to maintain continuity by using seat covers and strategic camera angles, but if you know what to look for, the differences are obvious. The most jarring change happens during the scene where Les and Dean pick up Mercedes. The wide shot shows blue leather, but the close-up dialogue was shot in a car with beige cloth seats. They had to reshoot part of it, but the final edit still has the mismatch if you freeze frame it. Number 16. The trunk gag used a prop. Remember that scene where Grandpa's massive trunk seems to swallow everything from golf clubs to a full-size spare tire with room to spare? That wasn't camera trickery. Well, not entirely. They actually built a fake trunk insert that was almost twice as deep as the real thing. The special effects team constructed this elaborate false bottom that extended down into a hidden compartment they'd cut through the actual trunk floor. When you see them loading stuff in, they're essentially filling two trunks stacked on top of each other. The real Cadillac trunk was already huge, about 21 cubic feet, but the prop trunk made it look like you could fit a small apartment in there. They used forced perspective too, placing smaller items in the back and larger ones up front to exaggerate the depth even more. The whole rig took 2 days to build and had to be carefully balanced so the car wouldn't pop a wheelie from all the weight in the back. Fun fact, they actually had to reinforce the rear suspension just to handle the prop trunk assembly, which weighed almost 200 pounds empty. Number 15. The speedometer was fake in some shots. Those dramatic close-ups of the speedometer, needle climbing past 90, 100, 110 miles per hour, total movie magic. The stunt cars were never actually going that fast, especially not on city streets. The production used a completely fake instrument cluster for those shots. It was basically a modified speedometer with a motor attached to the back that could make the needle move on command. A props assistant would crouch in the back seat with a remote control, making the needle dance while the car was barely doing 35. The real Cadillacs topped out at about 120 miles per hour from the factory, but insurance wouldn't let them go over 50 during filming. Some shots were done with the car on a trailer being towed while they filmed the speedo climbing. Others were shot with the car stationary on a process trailer with the background added later. The most convincing shots used a combination of both techniques. They'd film the real speedometer up to about 50, then cut to the fake one for the really dramatic numbers. Number 14, the car changed wheel covers. This one's for the real Cadillac nerds out there. The wheel covers, those big chrome hubcaps that Cadillac was famous for, they're different throughout the movie, sometimes wildly different. The hero car had the correct 1972 wire wheel covers with the color match center cap. Classic. Gorgeous. Exactly what Grandpa would have insisted on. But watch the stunt scenes carefully. Suddenly you'll see 1974 disc covers, then 1971 wire wheels, then some generic aftermarket covers that aren't even Cadillac. One car actually has mismatched covers, two different styles on the same vehicle. The production bought boxes of used hubcaps from junkyards trying to maintain some consistency, but they kept losing them during stunts. Those things would fly off during hard cornering and become dangerous projectiles. After nearly taking out a camera operator with a flying hubcap, they started using zip ties and safety wire to keep them attached. By the final week of shooting, they gave up trying to match them and just used whatever was available. Number 13. Damage continuity is inconsistent. Here's something that drives continuity nerds crazy. The damage to the car jumps around like crazy between scenes. A dent appears, disappears, then reappears somewhere else entirely. The broken taillight is on the left, then the right, then both, then neither. It's like the car has magic self-healing powers between takes. This happened because they were shooting out of sequence with multiple cars. They'd filmed the slightly damaged scenes with car number 2 on Tuesday, the heavily damaged scenes with car number 4 on Monday, and the pristine scenes with the hero car on Wednesday. The script supervisor tried to track everything with Polaroids and detailed notes, but it was impossible to keep straight. The front bumper is the worst offender. In one scene, it's hanging off. Cut to the next shot, supposedly moments later, and it's perfectly attached. Then it's bent, but attached. Then it's missing entirely. The production knew about these issues, but figured audiences would be too caught up in the comedy to notice. They were mostly right. It wasn't until the DVD release that fans started cataloging all the continuity errors. Number 12. The roof dents were staged. That scene where Les discovers the roof is completely caved in from teenagers partying on it, those dents were meticulously planned and created by the special effects team. They didn't just let some stunt people jump on the roof and hope for the best. The car's actual roof was way too strong for that. Instead, they brought in a team of auto body specialists who knew exactly how to create realistic-looking damage. They used special tools usually reserved for hail damage repair, but in reverse. Each dent was carefully placed to tell the story of where people sat, stood, and danced. The big crater in the middle, where someone obviously jumped. That took 3 guys with a pneumatic hammer working from underneath while another guy guided the shape from above. The whole process took 6 hours to get right. They actually had to do it twice because the first attempt looked too uniform, too fake. Real party damage would be chaotic and random, so they had to ugly it up. The final result was so convincing that people still ask the film's stunt coordinator how many people it took to cave in that roof. The answer? 0. It was all tools and technique. Number 11. The exhaust note was dubbed "that beautiful throaty V8 rumble" you hear throughout the movie. It's not coming from the Cadillacs they were filming. The real 472 cubic inch V8 in those DeVilles sounded impressive, sure. But not impressive enough for Hollywood. The sound department recorded a completely different car for all the engine audio. They used a modified 1970 Dodge Challenger with straight pipes and a radical cam. This thing sounded like thunder. They recorded it at various RPMs, different throttle positions, acceleration, deceleration, idle, the works. Then they layered these recordings over the footage of the Cadillac. In some scenes, they even mixed in sound effects from a powerboat engine to give it that extra deep rumble during the slow motion shots. The actual Cadillacs, especially with their factory, quiet exhaust systems, sounded more like sewing machines in comparison. During filming, they were so quiet that dialogue could be recorded live even with the engine running. That's actually why they had to add so much engine noise in post, because test audiences said the car didn't sound powerful enough for such a big vehicle. Number 10. The suspension height varies. Watch the car's ride height throughout the movie and you'll notice it's constantly changing. Sometimes it sits low and level like a proper luxury car. Other times, it's jacked up in the back like a 70s hot rod. This wasn't intentional. Each stunt car had different suspension setups depending on what abuse it was about to take. The car used for jumping curbs had heavy-duty springs installed that raised it almost 3 inches. The one used for the sliding and spinning scenes was actually lowered with cut springs for better stability. One car had completely shot rear shocks that made it bounce like a lowrider every time someone got in the back seat. They tried to hide these differences with creative camera angles, but it's obvious in wide shots. The most noticeable change happens during the chase sequence. When the car goes around corners, it's the lowered car. When it goes over bumps or jumps, it's the raised one. In one particularly jarring edit, the car appears to gain 4 inches of ground clearance between 2 shots that are supposed to be continuous. The producers didn't think anyone would notice, but Cadillac enthusiasts spotted it immediately. Number 9. The car somehow survives impossible abuse. Let's talk about real-world physics for a second. The punishment that Cadillac takes throughout the movie would have killed it 10 times over in reality. We're talking about impacts that would have bent the frame, destroyed the suspension, and probably caught fire. But movie magic keeps it running right until the script needs it to die. Take that curb jumping scene. A real 1972 DeVille weighs about 5,000 pounds. Launching that much weight off a curb at speed would have snapped the control arms like twigs. The oil pan would have been crushed. The transmission would have been toast. Instead, the car just keeps going like nothing happened. Or how about when it gets sideswiped repeatedly? Those impacts would have jammed the doors shut, shattered windows, and probably ruptured the fuel tank. The production actually had a real Cadillac expert on set as a consultant, and he spent most of his time laughing at how indestructible they were making these cars look. He told them that after the first major impact, a real DeVille would have been undrivable, but hey, it's a comedy, not a documentary about automotive engineering. Number 8. Grandpa's pride in the car was exaggerated. The whole premise of the movie hinges on Grandpa's obsessive love for his Cadillac, but this character trait was actually invented purely for comedic effect. The script originally had Grandpa driving a generic sedan that nobody cared much about. It was during rewrites that they decided to make the car a character itself. They chose a Cadillac specifically because it represented that old-school American luxury that a grandfather would treasure. The costume department even coordinated Grandpa's wardrobe to match the car's color scheme. That wasn't an accident. His blue cardigan in the opening scene, same shade as the car's interior. The production went all out selling this relationship. They hired a dialogue coach to help the actor deliver lines about the car with genuine affection. They shot extra footage of him polishing the hood ornament, adjusting the mirrors just so, carefully placing his driving gloves in the glove box. None of this was in the original script. It was all added to make the car's destruction feel like a genuine catastrophe, rather than just property damage. The irony is that the actor playing Grandpa didn't even like Cadillacs. He was a Mercedes guy in real life. Number 7. The final crash car was pre-crumpled. That spectacular final crash where the Cadillac looks like it went through a crushing machine, they didn't achieve that through stunt driving alone. The car was extensively pre-damaged before they even started rolling cameras. The special effects team spent 2 days carefully destroying a stunt car to make it look like it had been through automotive hell. They used hydraulic ramps to cave in the doors, sledgehammers to create authentic-looking impact zones. They even used a forklift to twist the frame slightly so the car would sit at that sickening angle. Every piece of damaged trim, every spider-webbed window, every dangle-in bumper was planned and executed before the actual crash filming. When it came time to film the crash itself, they only had to add the final 20% of damage to sell the effect. The car was rigged with small explosive charges to blow out the remaining windows on cue. Hydraulic cables pulled body panels loose at the exact right moment. The smoking engine effect came from oil-soaked rags hidden in the engine bay. The final shot where the car barely limps to a stop, it was being pushed by a hidden vehicle because the pre-damaged car couldn't actually drive anymore. Number 6. The interior lighting was artificial. Those warm, inviting shots of the Cadillac's spacious interior didn't happen naturally. Every interior scene required extensive lighting rigs that you never see on camera. The problem was that massive interior was like a cave. The 70s-style tinted windows blocked most natural light, and the dark blue upholstery absorbed what little made it through. The cinematographer had to get creative. They installed hidden LED panels under the dashboard that could be dimmed or brightened depending on the scene. Tiny spotlights were mounted behind the sun visors to highlight the actors' faces during dialogue. For night scenes, they used a special rig mounted on the hood that shone light through the windshield at just the right angle. The most elaborate setup was for the backseat scenes. They cut a hole in the roof of one stunt car and covered it with a special one-way material that let light in but looked solid from the outside. This gave them perfect overhead lighting for those intimate conversation scenes. Between takes, the crew had to constantly adjust these lights as the sun moved. Some dialogue scenes took all day to film just to maintain consistent interior lighting. Number 5. The steering wheel changes color slightly. Here's a continuity error that even the filmmakers didn't notice until the final edit. The steering wheel mysteriously changes from blue to black and back again throughout the movie, sometimes within the same scene. This happened because halfway through production, the original blue steering wheel in the hero car cracked from the repeated gripping during intense driving scenes. They needed a replacement fast, but couldn't find an exact match. The closest they could get was a black wheel from a 1973 model. They tried dyeing it blue to match, but the dye didn't take evenly. Under certain lighting, it looked black. Under others, dark blue. Under direct sunlight, you could see the uneven patches where the dye had pooled. Instead of reshooting, they tried to fix it in post-production, but 1988 color correction technology wasn't up to the task. They figured most people would be watching on fuzzy VHS anyway and wouldn't notice. But when the film was remastered for DVD, the steering wheel color changes became glaringly obvious. There's one scene where you can actually see the wheel change color mid-sentence as the lighting shifts. It's become something of an Easter egg for fans of the movie. Number 4. A stunt car had swapped doors. During the intense filming schedule, one of the stunt Cadillacs needed emergency repairs after a particularly hard sideswipe stunt went wrong. Both passenger side doors were completely destroyed, bent beyond any hope of opening. The production was already behind schedule and couldn't wait for matching replacement parts. So they did what any resourceful film crew would do. They raided a local junkyard. The doors they found were from a 1971 DeVille, close enough but not quite right. The blue paint was several shades lighter. The chrome trim was a different style. Even the door handles were slightly different shapes. The art department worked overnight trying to make them match. They repainted them, swapped trim pieces from other cars, even tried aging them with steel wool and chemicals to match the patina of the original paint. But if you know what to look for, you can spot the difference. The replacement doors sit about a 1/4 inch higher than they should. The window glass has a slight green tint that the original doors didn't have. There's one scene where both original and replacement doors are visible in the same shot, and the color difference is obvious. They tried to hide it by only filming that car in shadow or at night after the door swap. Number 3. The windshield break was a controlled stunt. That dramatic moment when the windshield finally gives up and spiderwebs into a million pieces, it wasn't random or accidental, it was one of the most carefully planned stunts in the entire movie. The The special effects team brought in glass specialists who pre-scored the windshield with nearly invisible cuts. These scores were strategically placed to create the perfect spiderweb pattern when triggered. The trigger itself was a small explosive charge about the size of a penny hidden in the windshield's rubber gasket. The stunt coordinator could detonate it remotely at the exact right moment for maximum dramatic effect. They actually had 3 backup windshields prepared the same way in case the first take didn't work. The timing had to be perfect, too early and it wouldn't match the action. Too late and they'd miss the actor's reaction. They did 12 rehearsals with the actors before attempting the actual stunt. When they finally pulled the trigger, the windshield shattered exactly as planned, creating that perfect crystallized look that stays in place just long enough before finally crumbling. The sound you hear isn't the real glass breaking either. The actual break was almost silent. The sound department added the crashing glass sound in post-production. Number 2. The Cadillac became a cult prop. After License to Drive hit theaters, something unexpected happened. That beat-up Cadillac became a cult icon among movie car enthusiasts. Fans started hunting for the actual screen-used vehicles, turning them into holy grails of movie memorabilia. The problem was, most of the stunt cars were destroyed beyond recognition. But the hero car survived, sort of. After filming Wrapped, it was sold at a studio auction to a private collector who had no idea what he was buying. He just thought he was getting a cheap vintage Cadillac. It wasn't until years later, when the movie gained cult status on cable TV, that he realized what he had. He restored it to its on-screen appearance, complete with artificial damage to match specific scenes. It now shows up at movie car shows, commanding appearance fees that would make the original purchase price look like pocket change. There are also at least 6 replica cars out there, built by fans who meticulously studied the film to recreate every dent and scratch. One guy in Ohio spent 3 years and $20,000 building an exact copy, down to sourcing the same mismatched hubcaps. These replicas sell for more than pristine, unmodified Cadillacs from the same era. Number 1. At least one screen-used car vanished. Here's the biggest mystery surrounding Les's grandfather's Cadillac. One of the screen-used cars completely disappeared after production wrapped, and nobody knows where it went. This wasn't one of the destroyed stunt cars. This was the second unit hero car, used for pickup shots and background scenes. It was in rough but restorable condition when filming ended. According to production records, it was supposed to be sold at the studio's monthly surplus auction, but it never showed up. The transportation captain swears he delivered it to the storage facility. The auction house says they never received it. Somewhere between the film set and the auction lot, a 5,000-pound Cadillac just vanished. Theories abound in the movie car community. Some think a crew member bought it under the table and is sitting on it until the value peaks. Others believe it was accidentally sent to a crusher with the destroyed stunt cars. The wildest theory is that someone connected to the production is keeping it in a private collection, waiting for the movie's 50th anniversary to reveal it. Multiple investigators and movie car hunters have tried tracking it down using the VIN numbers from production documents, but the trail goes cold in 1989. If it still exists somewhere, it's worth at least 6 figures to the right collector. And there you have it, 20 facts about that unforgettable Cadillac that you definitely didn't know existed. From swapped doors to vanishing vehicles, this car's story is almost as wild as what happens to it on screen. Did any of these facts surprise you? Got any theories about where that missing caddy might be? Drop them in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into movie car mysteries, hit that like button and subscribe for more behind the scenes secrets. We'll see you next time when we reveal another 20 facts about your favorite movie props.